So today's discussion is going to be about accepting gifts. If someone gives you a gift, is it a good thing? Is it recommended to accept it? Is there something good with receiving gifts, or is it something which is negative? And we'll see here a fascinating story from the times of the Gemara related to selling a field, buying a field, giving a gift. Very complicated story. Rav Gidel, there's a rabbi, his name was Rav Gidel. Hava mahapich b'hahi ara. He was attempting to buy a certain piece of land. However, Reb Abba went and bought it first. Doesn't seem like such a nice thing to do. Someone else is trying to buy a piece of land. What?
This is Aramaic, not Hebrew.
Yeah. And Reb Abba went and he bought it first. Reb Gidel went and complained to Reb Zera about Reb Abba's action. Reb Zera then went and presented a complaint to Reb Yitzchak Nafcha. Upon hearing what happened, Reb Yitzchak Nafcha said to Reb Zera, "Wait until Reb Abba comes to us for the next festival, and then we shall confront him." So these rabbis were probably living in different places, and during the Yom Tov, they would meet together and they would discuss, all the rabbis. It says in footnote 2, on the festivals of Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, leading sages would lecture on laws of the holiday. Disciples of these sages would travel to attend the lectures where they would meet their teachers. So during the Yom Tov was a time when all the rabbis and all the students would gather together and discuss. So we have here a big complaint. Rav Gidel is upset at Reb Abba. Why is Reb Abba coming to take the land if Rav Gidel is planning to buy it? So they said, he complained to a bunch of rabbis, and they said, let's meet him, we'll confront him in the time of the regel, and we'll discuss what we can do about this. And when Reb Abba came, Reb Yitzchak Nafcha found him and asked him, if a poor man is attempting to make possession of a certain biscuit that was abandoned by its owner.
Biscuit?
A biscuit.
Mm-hmm.
The word in Hebrew is charara. Charara is usually something that's baked in the oven. It could be a cookie, could be bread, it could be... Okay. So a poor person, a poor man, he's attempting to take a biscuit. And charara. Yep. And
more than once.
yeah, and another person comes and snatches it from him. What can we say about this latter person? That's a terrible thing. You have a poor person coming to take a biscuit, take some food, and another person grabs it from him. And he was sending him a message. He was saying, that's what you did. You were taking away land from someone, from Rav Gidel, that wanted to buy the land. Rav Abba replied to him, he is called a wicked man, for he has interfered with his fellow's livelihood. Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha then said to him, but why then did the master yourself do this? He's like, you're doing the same thing. Just like you would call a rasha someone who's taking away poor man's food before he's able to get it. So why are you taking away the field that Rav Gidel is trying to buy? Rav Gidel has been attempting to buy a certain piece of land, and you went ahead and bought it first. So this is the complaint. So now they met up, and the complaint is presented directly face-to-face to Reb Abba. Reb Abba responded, I had not known that Rav Gidel was trying to buy the land. He said, had I realized, I certainly would not have purchased it. Reb Yitzchak persisted, now too the situation can be rectified. Let the master give the land to Rav Gidel. So now the land is actually owned by Reb Abba. So what could he do now? He could give it to Rav Gidel. Reb Abba replied, or sell it to him. Reb Abba replied, I do not wish to sell it to him, for this is the first piece of land that I have ever acquired, and it is not auspicious to sell one's first acquisition. But if he wants the field, he may take it as a gift from me. So this is a very interesting concept, that it's a bad sign, it's a bad siman if a person, he bought something the first time and he has to sell it. It's the words over here as velo misamna milsa. It's not a good siman. Usually we say siman toiv, it should be a good sign, a good omen. But to sell your first piece of land, that's not a good siman. So he says, I don't want to sell it, but I'll give it to him as a gift. That's what Rabbi Abba is saying. So he realizes what he has done, and he's trying to correct it by giving a gift to Rav Gidl. Nevertheless, Rav Gidl did not enter the land, since he did not wish to take the land without paying for it. Rav Gidl did not want to take it as a gift, for it is written, "He that despises gifts shall live." So this is the pasuk. It says, "V'soine matanais." Soine is literally someone who hates or despises gifts. Yichya.
Is the implication here that Rav Gidl is poor and needs the land?
That's what it sounds like, because he's comparing it to a poor man. Yeah, it's not so clear. So Rav Gidl doesn't want to accept it because he doesn't want to receive a gift, because it says in Mishlei that someone who despises gifts shall live. Mm-hmm. Likewise, Rav Abba did not enter the land, for Rav Gidl had previously been attempting to buy it, and therefore did not wish to take it for himself. So you have here a piece of land, and both rabbis don't want to enter it. Rav Abba doesn't want to enter it because Rav Gidl was trying to buy it, and Rav Gidl doesn't want to take it as a gift. And Rav Abba doesn't want to sell it to him because that's his first piece of land. So now it's a stalemate. What do we do with this land? As a result, neither the master of Abba nor the master of Gidl entered the land. The land was left ownerless, and any rabbinic student who wished to make use of the land for his own needs would do so. So now the land was left over to the rabbis. Thus the land came to be called the land of the rabbinic students. This is called Ara de Rabbanan, the land of the rabbis. The two rabbis couldn't figure it out, and it was so now it's ownerless. But from the other hand, it says that who were the ones who came and used this land was the students, the Rabbanan.
It came to be called that, but is it explicit that they used it, or because none of them can use it?
So Rashi says that because these two rabbis were not using it, so they were mafkir, it became hefker, but they specifically made it hefker to the rest of the rabbis. They said yeah. Now this itself is a very big question. If you are, it's problematic because how could you make something free for all but not for all? It's like it's hefker, but only the rabbanan.
There's even the question about using something that's hefker.
What's the question of using something that's hefker?
Well, you end up, if the ownership is not known, then you don't know if you're stealing it.
Yeah. But we know that both of these rabbis said we're not going to use this land. So they clearly said
we're
not.
Still disputed. I mean,
they couldn't figure out. There's nothing that they can do in this situation. Yes. So there's a lot to discuss over here. First of all, this idea of not selling your first piece of land because it's a bad sign, because it's a bad siman. Is that something that Jewish people do? Do we make like a siman and say, this happened, so this is a bad omen, so we shouldn't do it? Do we believe in like having bad omens? Or good omens? And another question is, what's wrong with receiving a gift? Why was Rav Gidl so persistent? He said, I'm not going to take it. And this pasuk, it says that if you hate a gift, if you despise a gift, then you will live. What's wrong with receiving a gift? We receive gifts all the time.
Rabbi, you bought it, so you offered it, the guy didn't want it, so why?
There's a footnote 5 on there.
Why did he not use it for himself? He paid for it.
He paid for it, yeah. Why? The other person doesn't want to take it.
He soured his taste for the purchase. The other rabbi soured his taste.
Yeah, that's the thing, because once he knew that the other rabbi was trying to buy it, so now he felt bad to go back into this land. So this became the Ara de Rabbanan, the land of the rabbis. The rabbis' real estate. It's a very complicated land. So let's read more about gifts over here. In footnote 5, Reuven mentioned here. So there's a pasuk that says, Soine matanes yichya. One who hates gifts will certainly hate theft, and will not even come close to stealing, which causes one's life to be shortened. So that's... Now another question is this something that's a halacha, or this is something that's chassidus, like a person that's going beyond the letter of the law? Is there anything wrong with receiving a gift, or someone that wants to be pious, be extra. So let's look at insight 8, the conflict between gifts and life. Some commentaries understand King Shlomo's proclamation that he who despises gifts shall live in its simplest sense. A person who abhors gifts secures or lengthens his time on this earth. A person who does not accept handouts and toils for his sustenance need not fear that he will die of hunger or become ill from overexertion, for everything depends on Hashem's providence. Moreover, a person who shuns gifts demonstrates that he relies on Hashem rather than on other people, and in return Hashem grants him the gift of life which he alone can bestow. So we're saying over here that someone who relies on other people to live shows that he doesn't fully trust in Hashem. He's relying on people for his support and for his livelihood. Someone who trusts in Hashem, he doesn't need to receive gifts from other people. The Maggid of Mezrich understands that a desire for gifts stands in contradiction to the purpose of life. Because this is a very harsh thing. It says, Soine matana is yechya, that receiving a gift would be the opposite of life, because someone who despises gifts will get life. It sounds like the opposite, that someone who receives gifts will not live. So why is this? So the Maggid of Mezrich explains that receiving gifts is the opposite of life. Why? The reason Hashem grants life is so that the soul earns the pleasure of basking in His presence instead of experiencing that pleasure as an embarrassing handout as it did prior to enter this world. We know our neshama, before it came down to this world, was enjoying the Shekhinah above. So why did the neshama come down here? The reason for this is because in Gan Eden, where the neshama is above, it's not doing anything, it's not working hard, it's just enjoying. Hashem sent the soul down here that we should work hard and earn our connection to Hashem. A person who relies on gifts and handouts demonstrates that Hashem granted him life for no purpose, and he may as well die, for he does not mind receiving a handout in heaven without having to live in this world. So up there in Gan Eden, everything is a matana, it's all a gift. Why are we here? We're here to work. So someone who's just living on gifts, he's demonstrating that he thinks the purpose of life is just to be receiving, to be on the receiving end. If you want to receive and be on the receiving end, you might as well stay up there. That's what he's saying.
But the Torah says there will always be poor people in the world.
So that's tzedakah. There's a big difference between tzedakah and matanas.
That was okay, yeah, because I was just going to say, we have a big mitzvah matanas l'avionim.
Oh, we're going to discuss the matanas l'avionim and mishloach manos. Mishloach manos is a mitzvah of giving gifts. So how could the rabbis tell us to give gifts if the pasuk says that
You shouldn't receive them.
you shouldn't be receiving them?
Well, it says you shouldn't live off them.
Okay.
In this story, in this case, it doesn't say that he was living off this piece of land.
No, it says you shouldn't live off gift.
In the commentary.
You're not.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd like to understand the difference between tzedakah and matana.
Tzedakah and matana. Matana is a general thing which doesn't depend on the state of poverty. You could be receiving gifts, just anyone wants to give you a gift. Tzedakah is specifically when a person is in need, and then you're helping him out by giving him tzedakah. So that would be the difference. Matana is out of just choice. You want to give a gift to someone for whatever reason. Tzedakah, you're giving to someone because he needs it.
Certainly living off gifts implies that you're being bribed.
So that could be another thing, that it could be connected
A certain Supreme Court justice
to flattery.
who I was listening about, who was complaining about his lack of income, and all of a sudden a bunch of people with cases before the Supreme Court started funding his lifestyle in the manner to which he thought he should be accustomed, and lo and behold, they started making all these rulings that favored these gift givers.
Yeah, so that's what happens. So when you receive gifts, we'll see soon, you become biased. You kind of don't have your own life because now you're dependent on other people. They're giving you something, so you feel I have to give them back. So you don't have your own free choice in a way to make an honest and true
Which is fine if it's Hashem.
yeah. Maharal teaches that a person who hates gifts experiences the essence of life. A self-sufficient existence is fundamental to life, as we see that spring waters are called Mayim Chaim, living waters, since they come from their own source. So what is the difference between a mayon, a spring, and other waters? Because a mayim chaim, true life, true independent life, is something that is not dependent on other things. Accordingly, he who covets gifts from others misses the essence of life, whereas the individual who loathes them retains it. Similarly, the sages compare a poor person to a dead person, due to the former's dependence on others for his sustenance. So here we see again how it's really the opposite of what life is. Life is really about working and earning on your own. Someone who's always dependent on others is missing on what the essence of life is. Let's see the additional references on the bottom. The Vilna Gaon says, one who loves gifts lives his whole life waiting with anticipation for the next gift to come, and becomes despondent if he does not receive it. Living such a life cannot be called living. Once you start being dependent, you're waiting and waiting, when am I going to get more? And then the Chassam Sofer says, even if circumstances dictate that one must accept gifts, he should hate having to do so, and not relish the fact that he is receiving them. This is a little twist. It's saying, the pasuk doesn't say you can't take it. It says the soine matanis. You receive a gift, but you shouldn't be happy. You shouldn't be like, this is what life is about, receiving gifts. It doesn't. Even if a person has to receive the gift, he should do it in a way of more soine. He shouldn't do it out of. You shouldn't relish it. You shouldn't be very happy with that situation. So let's get a little bit more deep into this discussion. Take the paper here. So the first thing we're going to discuss is about omens and divination. There's a pasuk that says, it was actually in last week's parsha, Lo senachashu v'lo sa'inenu. Means you shouldn't divine, and you shouldn't sa'inenu. You shouldn't base things off of times. There's some people that say this is not a good time to do this, or so that's called sa'inenu. So the Shulchan Aruch says like this: Ha'aimer piti nafla mipi. Person was eating some bread, and the bread falls out of his mouth. Ay makli miyadi. He has a stick, and the stick drops, falls. Ay bini kairili machayrai. My son is calling me from the back. Ay shetzvi avsikay baderech. I was walking, and a deer passed me or stopped me in the way. Maybe I was driving, and a deer just passed. Hopefully you don't bump into it. Ay sha'avar nachash mimina. A snake passed on my right. Ay shual mismaile, or a fox on my left. He says, if one of these things happened, it's not a good day to travel. He says, things are just not going well today. I'm dropping everything. All of a sudden I see a deer passing by, a snake, or different things.
That's any one of these omens.
Yes. Or he says, I'm not going to start a certain work or job today. It's just not a good day. It's just... Some people do this divination with a chulda, which is like a weasel, or birds, or stars. Whom someone says, don't start collecting me from me in the morning. Or he says, Maitzai Shabbasu, Maitzai Rosh Chodesh. He says, maybe Matzai Shabbos is not such a good time, or after Rosh Chodesh. Someone says, this chicken that calls like a oirev, like a raven, you should slaughter this one specifically. He says, this rooster that made a sound made a certain sound, that is also asur. So all these things are types of omens that the Torah prohibits. The Torah says we should not make these signs. And the reason for this is because the pasuk says, "Tamim tia im Hashem aleikacha." We're supposed to be honest and sincere to Hashem.
Mm-hmm.
We don't trust in any other things besides for Hashem. We don't base our decisions and how we live our life based on things that happen around us. We trust in Hashem. So going back to our story in our Gemara, what did Reb Abba say? He doesn't want to sell the first piece of land. Why? Because it's not a good sign. It's not a good omen that you would think. So how is he allowed to do that? So the next halacha in Shulchan Aruch says that there is an exception. 3 exceptions. Bayis, tinaik, ve'isha. A house, a child, and a woman.
Did you say tinok?
Tinok. Afal pi she'ein nichush yesh siman. And here the Shulchan Aruch and halacha makes the difference, the distinction between nichush, which is divination, and making a siman, making a sign. And what is these 3 things? Bayis, tinak, ve'isha. Haga, im etzliach achar ze gimel pamim ayloi. It says, just after I bought my house, either things went good or things went wrong. So,
How do you spell tinok in Hebrew?
Taf Yud Nun Vav Kuf. Kuf, Tinok.
It almost said bitachon.
Mm-hmm.
Bias. You look at the initials.
Oh,
It's bitachon, but it almost says bitachon,
close.
which is interesting in this situation.
Because it's all about bitachon, really. This is the trusting in Hashem. So if a person just bought a house or just got married and then either things go right or go wrong, you could use it as a siman. Like if everything goes well after you just bought a house, then that could be a good siman. You say siman tov, mazel tov. After a person gets married, you are also allowed to tell a child, tell me your pasuk. This was another type of way of knowing what to do, is you see a kid coming from school or something, you tell me a pasuk, tell me what you learned today. And based on that, you decide what to do. It's another way to get like a message from Hashem. Mm-hmm. We find that Mordechai did it. In the time of Purim, he met a few kids in the street and he asked them, what are you learning? And they said, Al tira mipachat pisam, don't be afraid. Utzu eitza v'sufar, another child said that. So we see that that is allowed, to ask a kid to say a pasuk. Yesh Aimrin, there are some people that say, the Adam mutter lasas siman bedavar sheyaveh la'asid. Some people say you're allowed to make a sign for what will come in the future. This is a story in the Torah, which is a big discussion about, is Eliezer. Eliezer is trying to find a shidduch for Rivka. And what does he do? He says, the girl that will bring me the water, she will be the girl. Yeah. Is that not making an omen? Is that not making a sign? How does he know that that's the right girl? He davened. So why do you have to make a sign? Just Hashem will bring it to you. What are you making a siman for?
But it's not the same as, just... It's elevated because he davened for it. It's not just like general superstition or, without acknowledging God, requesting a sign.
So that's the question. Even if you acknowledge Hashem, are you still allowed to make a sign and base your decision based on what's going to happen or something?
I guess I'm saying that's different than, the bias
than someone doing it without davening to Hashem.
Exactly.
Right. So there would be a difference.
To a major way.
However, it's very interesting. The Rambam says, when he talks about making omens, he says, do not do like what Eliezer Eved Avraham did. He says, don't do what Eliezer did. You could say that Eliezer was before the whole giving of the Torah and things were different, and we'll see right now that this is a discussion.
Is that because he asked for something so specific that he was, in effect, challenging God? Or is that because you shouldn't?
So this is the thing. In a way, you're kind of relying on a certain thing that will happen or that happened to make your choice and not really relying on Hashem.
I mean, of course, maybe he's on such a high madriga that it wasn't a question, it was a statement of fact. That the girl who brings the water is going to be, that he is, nevuah.
And not Jew, yeah. That's what they say about him. He was on such a high level that he affected the problem. Yeah.
So yeah, you could say that. So there are some people that say that what Eliezer did was okay. Another difference is one
Don't
type.
do like him. Evil Knievel can jump the fountain. You shouldn't try.
That could be another approach. Another difference is there's an omen about something that happened or that will happen. So the cases we brought before was my bread fell, so that's why I won't do something. But what Eliezer was doing is basing on the future. What if this will happen, then this is the right girl. So some people say that that's allowed and that's different than the other omens that you're doing based on something that happened in the past. V'yesh oisrim. Some people say that it's still not allowed to do what Eliezer did. And it finishes off. V'hailech b'toim. The person that walks in a sincere path, ubeiteach b'Hashem, and trusts in Hashem, chesed yisay v'venu. Kindness will surround him. It's basically finishing off that it's better just to rely on Hashem, and the kindness will surround you. Hashem will make things happen. And we'll just read the next thing. It says, Im hitzliach, where it's in bold, Im hitzliach, de kesheraya shemazalei nigrach as v'shalom achar shenasa isha zoi. If someone sees that after he got married to this woman, things are going, his mazel is off a little bit, aidar bebayezeh, or he's living in a certain house and things are not going well, lo yarba ba'esek oid. There is something to it, and you should not continue in that affair, in that business. Upsaikli psukecha, and asking a kid for a pasuk, have a ke'ein nevuah ketana. It's like a small prophecy. So if a kid tells you something, tells you a pasuk, you shouldn't take it lightly.
We know that from Mordechai.
Mordechai, yeah, that's an example.
I think there's other examples than just Mordechai. I can't remember them.
Yeah.
Didn't one of the Roman conquerors or one of the rabbis at the time of the Roman conquest ask children what was going on?
Yes, one of the people that wanted to destroy the Beis Hamikdash, he asked the kid also to say a pasuk, and the kid said that Hashem will give the hands of
This is just before he threw the axe, the final axe, right?
Yeah, he threw an arrow.
Pardon?
He threw an arrow, I think, in a
He
certain.
threw an axe and the handle hit the wall, and the gates broke.
Maybe it's a different story, or
Maybe it's
he also threw an arrow and tried to see in which direction it'll go, and it went towards Yerushalayim. So either way, so the story over here in our Gemara that he did not want to sell the land was not against what the pasuk says about omens. Why? Because there's an exception. Bayis tinek v'isha. There's an idea of a siman. It's not that you're making an omen, it's a certain siman. There's a certain sign that if you see that things are not going well in a certain direction, you have to be careful. If it's connected to bayis, tinoik v'isha. So bayis is like real estate. And over here, this was his first land. If he would have to sell his first land, that would not be a good siman, that would not be a good sign. So that's why Reb Abba did not want to sell his land. Now this idea of not accepting gifts is brought in the Rambam, in Halacha, and he says like this, Hatzadikim HaGemurim, the complete and righteous tzadikim, V'anshe Maisa, and virtuous people, Lo yikablu matana me'adam, should not receive gifts from people, Alabaytchim b'Hashem baruch shemai lo ben divim. They trust in Hashem, not in people that are generous. Bari Nemar v'seine matanis yichya, and he brings from this pasuk that says that those who despise gifts will live. The same thing is brought in the Shulchan Aruch of the Alter Rebbe, Midas Chasidus shalei lekabel matana, and that it is a pious thing not to receive a gift. Al l'ftayach b'Hashem sheyitim leidei machzorei shenemar v'seine matanis yichya. Like it says that someone who despises gifts shall live. Let's look on the bottom of the page where it says Sefer Me'ira Seinayim. The Seinay Matanes Yichya. Pasuk, this is a pasuk. V'darish la Gemara Kain Reish Per Gimel de Kiddushin. So now, what is the reason? What's the reason for despising gifts? The Kavanas Razal, the Derech B'nei Adam. It is the way of people. Liyes Lohut Achar Mamain. People are caught up about money. B'soivram lahachyes nafshay v'nefesh beisai, in order to give parnasa and livelihood to his soul and for his family. The Ka'amar, and the Pasuk is telling us, Shlomo HaMelech in Mishlei is telling us, the Adarabba, Seine Matanes Yichya, that if you want to live, you should despise gifts. Ki halo tachar matanes tzarich lahachnef habriyos. Someone who is caught up and addicted to gifts, he has to lahachnef, he has to flatter the people. Ve'enai merchichan, like what he said, al maseim haroim, and he will not rebuke them for their actions, shiraya bahem, that he sees in them. So that is more of a spiritual reason for why to despise gifts. So there's actually two reasons here. One is a physical reason. If you're dependent on other people, then what life are you really living? You're just being dependent on others. And a spiritual reason is because you won't be able to ever tell someone off because you're always accepting from them.
It's funny, in effect, the beggar who required tzedakah to live is has a higher level of honor than this person does. That's a very Jewish thing.
Just share an anecdote. Rabbi Zuckerman, that was a big rabbi over here. So I was told, did not take a salary. He did not take money from the community. And one time he got up there, he had to tell people or give them some musar, tell them off about something. And he says, I don't take any money from you so I can tell you what to do. And that was part of the reason, is because sometimes a rabbi has this fear, if he's being supported, so then how could I tell you off or tell you some rebuke?
Is there any concern about the traditional giving a rabbi a gift when he does a marriage or other services such as a bris?
So let's get into that. This is going to be So this is a big question about rabbis working. The Rambam, he's of the opinion that a rabbi should be working, should have another parnasa. He shouldn't live off of his teaching and of his service. The Kesef Mishnah.
Awkward.
However, the Kesef Mishnah, and maybe there's a pun over there, the Kesef Mishnah, he says that it is allowed, and that's how it's been done in many places, that the rabbi does get paid from the community. So let's see what the Shulchan Aruch said.
Now you're out of the realm of gifts.
A modern congregational rabbi has many different tasks.
Mm-hmm.
I should think.
Besides for
looking after the kashrus and the caterers and the building and who's going to clean it and
All the clothes.
That's the president's job.
What?
That's the president's job.
Well,
That's why shuls have that iron wall between the rabbi and
that's what.
the administration.
But just that I've done, in the last probably the last couple of centuries, where the synagogue edifice was more than just a rabbi and a kahila davening and learning.
One of the funny things is that the rabbi's salary is inversely proportional to the religiosity of the congregation. You look at Reform rabbi salaries and you look at Orthodox Haredi rabbi salaries, and there's several zeros difference. It's just a funny thing.
But we see over here that there is a big debate and dispute between the rabbis how the rabbi should get paid. Should he get paid for being a rabbi, or is that a problem? He should be getting his parnasa from a different source. So let's see what on the second page where it says here Shulchan Aruch and Ramah. He says V'kolza deshari, and he says like this: when we say that it is allowed, Hainu shenaitel pras min hatzibur. So he's saying that you're allowed to take a pras, which would be like a salary, or yaspaka kavua, which is a set payment. Aval eimay lekabel deronis min habriyos. But it says the rabbi should not be receiving gifts from people. And he's making this differentiation. He's saying the salary is okay, but gift is not. V'hada amrinan kala mevi darin lachacham ki'ilu makriv bikurim. There is a Gemara that says whoever brings a gift to a chacham, to a wise person, it's like he's bringing bikurim. So that's implied that it's a very positive thing if we're comparing it to Bikurim. Hainu b'deironos ketanim. This is a small gift. Shekein derech b'nei adam lahavi deiron katan la'adam chashuv, because giving a small gift is something which is very common, and people give it to people afiluhu ama aretz. You give gifts to an important person even if he is not a Talmud Chacham. So here he's making a difference between a big gift and a small gift. Now, who's going to decide what's big, what's small? That's another question. But there is this difference out there, that there's a difference between a big gift and a small gift.
Hopefully it's a Schottenstein deciding it's a small gift.
What?
I said, hopefully it's a Schottenstein
Yeah.
deciding it's a small gift. Ruben,
So,
I'm sorry.
make sure you give us a small gift, don't you?
now, how does this help us with our Gemara? Because in our story, Reb Abba wanted to give this land as a gift. But didn't he know the pasuk? Didn't he know this pasuk of despising gifts, that it's not a proper thing? So why was he even trying to give it as a gift to the other rabbi? So,
Because the other issue was bigger?
because we see that it's not so simple. A rabbi could receive a gift. It depends how big and how small it is. And we'll see here, some people say that it's allowed altogether. Let's continue. Aval ein le lekabel dereinos. Uve kesef Mishnah, again the Kesef Mishnah says, Mashma dafilo dereinos mutter. The Kesef Mishnah says you're allowed to receive gifts. B'chein pirush marshal she'ein achreya bedavar. He says that this was not ever decided and ruled in one way. Uman de kapid kapid. If you want to be careful about this and not receive gifts, you can. But it's not like that there's a halacha that you're not allowed to receive gifts. So this could explain our Gemara. It wasn't so simple. Reb Abba wanted to give a gift. He wasn't sure if Reb Gidl was careful about this or not. He didn't know, so he did his part. And Reb Gidl says, no, I'm very careful about this pasuk. And he makes an interesting point. He says, Shari leiksiv bekra v'lekeach matanos yamos. The pasuk doesn't say someone who receives gifts will die. It doesn't say it in the negative. It says someone who despises gifts will live. If there was something wrong that you're not allowed to receive a gift, it would have said it in a much stronger way, that someone who receives a gift will die, but it's not true. V'gam habach herech bazed demutter l'reish yeshiva ayav bezdin l'kabel matanos. The Bach, the Bayis Chadash, also says, it goes on at length, that a Rosh Yeshiva or a rabbi is allowed to receive gifts ad sheyis asher, until he becomes wealthy. Shehu kamay nasi v'kayin gadol. It says that a nasi or a kayin gadol is supposed to be rich, and that's supposed to come from the community. So we see here that it is allowed and it is supported. And he finishes off v'chein nagu. He says the custom is that we do give rabbis gifts. So that's how he concludes. So we see over here that there's different opinions. Some people are careful, some people are not careful. He says the minhag, most people will receive the gift.
And he hasn't even addressed the question about why giving your first piece of land is an issue. I mean, this sounds...
So that was the siman. That was a different thing. That was because it was a bad siman. It was a bad sign.
He never explains why it's a bad siman. Is this just, in the air? Is this, is this based on some sort of pagan thing? Is this based on...
Sounds like superstition.
These are all things that Judaism has problems with.
So that's what we were discussing about before, that most things you're not allowed. There's this exception of bias, tinuk, and isha.
No, I understand that. It's just...
Yeah, it sounds like what's the basis for it, right? And that's an interesting question.
And I thought that might be underlying some of these things that, a snake, a fox, these things, they sound, you don't know what they're related to. They could be related to, the snake god or some of the, these sort of things.
Yeah, so this goes into the whole thing about, do we believe in mazel? You say this person has a good mazel or bad mazel. Is there a problem? So here we see that there is certain things like a siman. You could kind of see the way things are going. If things are not going well after a major event, we do believe that there is something to it. Like after buying a house, things are going well or not going well, you could see that there is something. It's not like a superstition. It's not like a crazy thing it's not explained.
You may have covered this already, but you get this first piece of land and it comes with bad mazel.
Yeah.
Now what? Because now you're not supposed to give it away, but it appears to be filled with this bad mazel. Now we're stuck with
What do you do?
Yeah.
See, but I think the difference is that superstition is something that you can't really explain. It's kind of made up. It's just like hocus pocus. Because a fox...
You should be able to daven your way out of it.
Right, because a fox went by, so that's why like who said, like what? But over here, buying a house is something which is very significant and meaningful in life. And so that's why, because it's possible to explain, and that there is something to it. That's why.
Why didn't the seller tell the first rabbi, the second rabbi, someone else is interested in this too, you know?
Oh, so that's a very good question. Some people say that he did know, and what happened over here is, this is another halacha question, is if you never set a price, is that considered that you had your hands on it? Which means, let's say you have a person putting up a field or a house for sale, and someone says, okay, I want it, but they never had something concrete. They never did any contract, never no contracts, and they didn't even make up a price. And that's really what happened over here. Reb Gidl, he was just looking into it, but it wasn't serious. And now, Reb Abba knew that. He knew that Reb Gidl was looking into it, but he didn't feel that was binding. He didn't feel that's the reason.
There wasn't anything holding the property.
Yeah, but the other rabbis felt that, yes, the other rabbis that rebuked him, they felt that because he was already looking into it, out of like being a chassid, being pious, he still shouldn't have taken it for Reb Abba's level. Which means he was allowed to technically, but because Rav Gidl was already looking into this field, so it's not recommended, it's not according to Reb Abba's level to do what he did. That's why he was rebuked, and then after that he tried to make up for it. And now, Reuven mentioned the question of Shalach Manas, right? How are you allowed to give Mishloach Manas, and why is there a mitzvah to give Mishloach Manas? Isn't this the opposite of giving gifts? So, I'll share a story. There's the Brisker. There was a certain dynasty called the Brisk dynasty, and they were very machmir, very careful about halachas and really about everything. They were very chumrah, very into chumrah. So there's a person who came to bring one of the Brisk rabbanim, Shalach Manas. It was on Purim, and he said, wait a minute. He went outside to see if the sun has set, and then he saw that it didn't set yet, and then he accepted. And then he accepted it. So they asked him, "What are you doing? Like, what's? Why are you checking to see if the sun is set?" He said, "I'm careful about this pasuk about not receiving gifts only for mishloach manas. So if the sun set already, then it's not Purim. If it's already too late, then I wouldn't receive the gift. Only because it's Purim, then I'll receive it." What's the answer for this is, on Purim we're doing it because it's a mitzvah. It's not just, you're not doing it because you're giving a gift and you want to do for any of the reasons we mentioned before. Because you're doing it for the mitzvah, it's a different category.
Doing the guy a favor by taking it, so he can become the mitzvah.
Right. Now,
Something because Esther did.
what Esther did?
That's why there's Shalach.
So there's a few reasons that maybe one of the reasons because what Esther did. Another way out of it is, there's a story, this is where number 2, it says, whenever Reb Zera was sent a gift, he would not accept it. But whenever he was invited out to dine, he would go. So Reb Zera, he wouldn't accept a gift, but if he was invited for a dinner, he would go. Why? For he used to say, they are honored by inviting me. It's not about me. I'm not going because I want the party. I'm doing it for them because it's an honor for them for me to be there. And here we see that there's 2 types of gifts. There's receiving a gift for yourself, and then there's receiving a gift to make the giver happy. There's some people that always love to give, and if you don't accept it from them, they'll be offended. So sometimes you're allowed to receive the gift not for yourself, but for the person giving.
It's interesting because that's a big deal in the Middle East.
Yeah?
I've heard about people going to visit sultans and Saudi royalty and so forth, and if you so much as comment on anything they own, they're going to give it to you, and it's insulting at that point not to take it. Some reporter was talking about how he ended up going home with a falcon because they were out falconing, and he said that this bird is very handsome. The next thing you know, he's coming home with a falcon. Very, very big culture.
So
Here we are.
yeah, so this is another approach. So mishleach manos, why are you giving the gift? It's not only about receiving it. You're helping someone else do the mitzvah. If you receive his shalach manos, so now the person who gave it is doing the mitzvah. So you're doing it more for the person giving than for the person receiving. Which is also, it's an interesting thing to think about. If you send someone shalach manos and he doesn't receive it, are you still doing the mitzvah? Is the mitzvah to send the gift, or is the mitzvah that the person should receive? Mishloach.
So if you leave it by their door, which many people have done, you've fulfilled your end of the mitzvah, yeah?
Possibly. So this would depend on this question. Is it about receiving or is it about giving? Another question is, if you return it, send it back to him. You say, because I'm careful about not receiving gifts, I'll send it right back to you. Is that doing the mitzvah? So that's another discussion. Now, the third way to answer this question is, we said that by receiving gifts, it takes away from your life, because you feel like you're not living on your own, you're dependent on other people. By Purim, the reason why we're giving gifts is because we got our life back. So it's just the opposite. We're saying that receiving gifts takes away from your life, but by Purim, when we give gifts, we're celebrating the life that Hashem saved us during the miracle of Purim. And giving gifts on Purim is supposed to make us simcha, make us happy. So it's just the opposite of what the Pasuk is saying. The Pasuk is saying that receiving gifts could make you sad, because you feel like, I'm just receiving from other people. But on Purim, it's just the opposite. Giving mishleach manos is an attitude of simcha, of joy, and we're celebrating life. We're celebrating the fact that we were saved during the miracle of Purim. So giving gifts on Purim is actually yichya, that will bring life. I will mention that there's different tzaddikim that had different policies about gifts. The Rebbe had a very strong policy about not receiving gifts. People would bring him Sfarim, books. Every time he would say, you have to pay for a sefer. And he would give a symbolic amount or something for it. He wouldn't receive a gift. There's a story, my great-grandfather, he noticed that the Rebbe had a very old car that he was using for a long time. And he bought the Rebbe a very new and fancy car. And everyone wanted to see what would happen. So they placed it right in front of where the Rebbe would come out to, and everyone was looking around. And the Rebbe walked out. He said this pasuk, someone who despises gifts shall live, and went right back to the old car. Didn't even look at the new car. Didn't take it. Another thing that we do connected with gifts is lekach. On Erev Yom Kippur, the tradition is that we ask for the honey cake. And again, we have this question about giving gifts. Why are we asking? And again, we're doing it for the mitzvah. It's not like that you need honey cake specifically from the other guy. This is the mitzvah. This is the minhag that we do. So we're doing it for the sake of the mitzvah, and we're receiving it from Hashem. On the last page, we'll speak a little bit about the Ara de Rabbanan. At the end, what happened? This field was called the Rabbi's land. So it's funny, I did a little search about these words, Ara de Rabbanan, and I found that there's a whole sefer called the Rabbi's land, Ara de Rabbanan, based on these words over here. And this book was written by Rabbi Yisrael Yaakov Al-Ghazi. He was a rabbi in Turkey and then in Yerushalayim from 1680 to 1756. And this book that he wrote was all about things that are derabbanan, all things that are rabbinic. He gave it like a cute title, Ara derabbanan, the land of the rabbis. So this is not only 2 words in our Gemara, but there's an entire sefer called the land of the rabbis. Now, in the Gemara it said, Lo mar nachasle v'lo mar nachasle. It says, this rabbi didn't enter it, and this rabbi didn't enter it. After it already said that each one didn't accept it. And it seems like a repetition. Why does it say that, again, this rabbi didn't enter the land, and the other rabbi didn't enter the land? We already know that each one said, no, I'm not going to take it. Why did it repeat it? So I'll say the answer outside. He says, after one rabbi said, I'm not going to take it because this field, you're into it, because you started looking into it. And then the other rabbi says, I don't want to take it as a gift. They offered it to the other one again. And they said, you know that the other rabbi doesn't want to take it, will you take it? And then they asked the other rabbi, you know that the other rabbi is not going to take it, will you take it? It didn't just happen automatically. Oh, one rabbi didn't take it, the other rabbi didn't take it, and then the students just came and grabbed it. That's not what happened. Each one got a chance, and they knew that the other rabbi wasn't going to take it, and still they didn't take it.
Rabbi still held the deed.
No, at the end they both gave it up. That's the thing. Rabbi Abba said, I'm not going to use this land. I'm not going to enter this
So
land.
what did he do with his deed?
So it became Hefker. He says, whoever wants could take it. And
he gave it to the community.
basically, yeah.
Yeah, I get it, but it still was his deed.
It was, yeah.
He just made like a corollary to the deed.
So what it's saying is here that each one had their...
As soon as it becomes Hefker, though, it stops being a gift and it stops being a...
Yeah.
So then the problem's gone.
That's what they did. That was
No,
the
but I
way.
mean, that means
Except
that
if
Rabbi
you go
Gittel
back
could
and reclaim it.
Rabbi Gittel could have then stepped in and said, I'd like to pick up this Hefker land.
So that's what we're saying. That what's amazing is each rabbi knew that the other one wasn't going to take it.
Right.
And still they didn't take it because there was some negative association with this land, even though they knew that the other one wasn't going to take it for sure. It's not like they were thinking, oh, let me take it back in case he doesn't want or whatever.
So does the state ultimately have that ownership of the land?
So this was, what's interesting is only the rabbis were allowed to enter the land. That's what's a little bit tricky over here. It says that it wasn't free for all for everyone. It was called Ara de Rabbanan. They made it Hefker, and they made a condition that it's free for all the rabbis. That was the condition they made here.
So it became property of the shul?
Basically, I guess all the Rabbanan, the Rabbanan, the Talmudic Chachamim. Now, how?
Where's the land now?
I don't know. I don't know if we know. So now, we'll just read the last 3 lines over here. Now, till now we were thinking that when we called it the land of the rabbis, we were referring to the students. But there's a twist over here. The last paragraph. When it was called the rabbi's real estate, the rabbi's land, Eina kavana la talmidim. He says we're not referring to the students who occupied the land. El Rabbanan Kaya Rabban. It's supposed to be Gidol v'Rab Abba. It actually was called after the original rabbis, the original people that were connected to this land. Ki bavur chasidus shel shneim. We're trying to show how both were so pious. The loy marnachas law. Each one did not want to enter it because there was something about it. That is how the students merited this land. The students named this land after their rabbis. To give us a good memory. Shel Reb Abba v'Rabban Gamliel. So this is a very important lesson. It's not like, okay, the teachers didn't take it, so all the students come and grab.
Again, that should be Gittel, not Gamliel, right?
Yeah, unless he has a different version of this. So he's saying, why did he call it the land of the rabbis? It's referring to the 2 rabbis who were so pious that even though they were allowed to take the land, each one had no problem. There was nothing in halacha that they were not allowed to enter the land, but because they were so pious, they wouldn't take it, and that's why this land was called on their names. Just finish off, tonight is Pesach Sheini. So what does Pesach Sheini have to do with all of this? I was thinking, what does Matana have to do with this whole story?
I'm sorry, when is Pesach Sheini?
Pesach Sheini is when the Jewish people...
No, I know that. When?
Tonight.
Tonight.
Tonight and tomorrow.
Tomorrow's the first day.
Yeah.
I should have put that in the newsletter.
Yeah, I forgot it's the end of the week. Have some matzah. So what is the difference between Nisan and Iyar, between Pesach Rishon and Pesach Sheini? Pesach Rishon, the first Pesach that they got as a gift. They didn't work for it. Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim. Hashem, did everything for us. He told us all the mitzvahs. Pesach Sheini is something that the Jewish people invented. There was no mitzvah.
People that didn't make it.
Yeah, they came and complained, and they got this mitzvah from, it was earned, it was through their effort. So that could be the difference between receiving gifts, that's like the month of Nisan, Pesach Rishon, and Pesach Sheini is when we earn something, when we work hard and then we get it. So that's like a difference between Nisan and Iyar. Nisan is when Hashem takes us out of Mitzrayim, Iyar is when we start working and do the Karban Omer, Sfiras Omer, working on ourselves, and then we get the gift of Shavuos. What a...